Hallo und herzlich willkommen beim Filmfest München. Hello and a very warm welcome to Filmfest München. Well, let's not keep you waiting. Let's welcome Viggo Mortensen and Solly McLeod. Come on in. Well, I mean, since the vibe here is already pretty good, I wanted to ask you, you just got here from Carlo Vivari and you opened the festival there. How was that? How did that go?
It was good. Big ceremony. A lot of talk before the movie. I was starting to worry that they were talking so long that everybody was going to have to pee 10 minutes after the movie started. But they were clever because they had the big ceremony and then they'd let everybody rest for 40 minutes, and so everybody peed first. That was the best thing about it.
Well, I guess peeing is very important, isn't it?
Very. We all do it.
I don't.
No?
Never.
Never? That explains a lot.
Yeah. So that's a direct link to the title of your film, The Dead Don't Hurt.
And the dead don't pee either.
The dead don't pee. Yeah.
Maybe a better title.
It's so great to have you here with us, with a film that is your sophomore film as a director after Falling, that you did the music on, that you edited, that you produced, that you directed, acted in. So it is actually, of course, a labor of love, a work of passion.
Yes, it took a long time. No, it didn't take as long as my first movie to find the money, which is usually the longest, most frustrating part. But instead of 4.5 years, it took 2.5 years, which for an independent film is maybe not too bad.
And I mean, you did direct it, you produced it, you're starring in it, and you wrote the music. And it did all start with the music, right?
Well, it started with the script, but I consider the music to be part of the script. We did the music, we recorded all of it, well, many months before we started shooting. And the music I did with the musicians. We were looking at the script, and I was describing which scenes I wanted to have music, which transitions. So it came from the script, and then I took this music that we'd recorded and played it for the team, for the cinematographer, just to explain what the rhythm of certain sequences would be, how long they should last, what the mood should be. So that was very helpful. It always felt like it was part of the story, which is how I like when music feels like it accompanies and helps rather than dominates the movie.
So music rhythmicizes the whole thing from the very first moment, explains more, because I find it supremely interesting that you would say it's part of the script. So really in the beginning of the process, even before shooting. So when you were acting out scenes or in the very first moment, did you already use music on set? No, it didn't went that far.
Not on set. I know some directors have done that before, but no, not on set. I've seen some documentaries like Sergio Leone, Once Upon a Time in America, where he would play music while they were acting, which I think for the poor sound department that would be a nightmare. But so I like to treat the sound department as being as important as the camera department. A lot of times directors don't do that. They just hire the sound department last minute, and then everybody's on set. We're waiting on sound to put their microphone, waiting on sound. And if you prepare with them, like with everyone else, months ahead of time, as we did, then the sound design, the ideas of where to place microphones, what the sound should be, is part of the story, part of the script in a way. And so they don't feel like that pressure that they sometimes feel on the shoot.
And Solly, did that help you, like knowing the music first, to also like discover your character, because you're playing the antagonist of Viggo's character? It's like, did that help you, or how did you go about your role?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember how much music I was
I didn't,
shown beforehand.
Yeah, you might have heard a
How
little
much-
bit. You saw Raphael playing piano in the saloon, things like that.
So I was there when things were being filmed, where you had the diegetic music in the movie, the live music in the saloon and stuff like that. But for my character, I remember the sound of his spurs when he walks. You know, you hear him before you see him. Instant threat, kind of thing. When you hear the, it's like, oh shit, what's gonna happen?
Here he comes.
So that was a sound element that helped, and it changed the way I moved and walked as the character, and costume and all that was a big help as well. Yeah.
Recently, you've been working a lot. I think when you say 2.5 years, it was a bit earlier on in your career. So how were the casting decisions being made? How did you two come together?
I had heard about Solly and saw some pictures of him, and then I saw some brief bits of video. There wasn't a lot at that time, but I liked, there was some instinct I had just about the way he sounded, the way he looked, and so we first met via Zoom, and I could hear that he didn't sound like an American cowboy, and so I obviously said, well, you would be from this area, your father would have been, you would have been born out west, and you would have a certain kind of sound, and obviously we would, if you do the role, we would connect you with the actor playing your father, so you could have a resemblance, family-wise, as to how you speak. But first step would be to see if you can sound more or less, no real acting required, but more or less the accent. Do you want to take a couple of weeks to prepare, and then we'll just read the scenes together? And he said, no, give me a few days. And so a few days later, we read the scenes, and I have to say, it was almost as good as what you see in the movie, which is perfect. And I was really impressed. And although he looked, and is, very young, but at the time he was 21, and without a beard, he looked like he was, no offense, but like 16, 17. And I thought, wow, I was much younger, but it's interesting, much younger than I thought. And then so I asked him if he could grow a beard, and he said, well, I am, ginger-haired. How much time do I have? I said, oh, you have like 6, 7 months, so it should be all right. And then, so he managed, and it helped.
It was okay. It was all right. It's an okay beard.
No, but I mean, his maturity, technically, and just his behavior on set, and his willingness to try things and to work really hard, not just the accent, but just the physicality and the horseback riding, which had to be really good. And we gave him the most difficult horse to ride, really. And at first, the horse trainer, who was an old cowboy who came out of retirement, I'd worked with him on some other westerns. After 2 days with Solly, I said, can you ride the big black horse? And he said, no. I've worked for 50 years in the movies, and I've never injured an actor, and I don't want to start now. This horse is too dangerous. I would let you ride it, but I'm not going to let him ride it. And I said, well, he should ride it, this character. I said, it's not going to happen, I'm sorry. I said, well, keep working. I know Solly's really hardworking, and he did. He worked a lot. Then we went to Canada to do the first couple of days, and Solly stayed and kept riding all day long, weekends, whatever. And I think you were very sore, right? But
yeah,
I had asked him.
I couldn't sit down. I was like this for like 3 days.
But Rex Peterson is his name, this cowboy, and he's very direct. And when Solly got the part, I said, do you ride horses? He goes, yeah, actors always say yes. Can you ride a motorcycle? Can you parachute? Can you do magic tricks? Yeah. Can you surf? Can you, skydive? Yes. They always say yes. We don't want to lose the job, And so he said yes after a fashion or something. And I said, well, if you can find some kind of horse in London and, take some lessons. And he did.
Find a horse in London.
He somehow did, or outside of London. And then I said to Rex, he goes, well, how's this guy ride? I said, he's riding now, I think, a horse in London somewhere. And, could you ask him to send a video? So I said, Solly, could I see? I didn't scare him. I didn't say Rex wants to see a video. I said, can you send me a video just to see how you're progressing? And
I thought I was doing really good.
I'll let you take it from here, and including what he said to you when you met.
Yeah, well, so I found a place just outside of London to ride. I did maybe 4 or 5 sessions, on a weekly, every week or something. Not 4 or 5 sessions a week, 4 or 5 sessions. And I thought I was doing really well. I'm like, yeah, I'm riding a horse, this is good, feels good. And then, can you send a video? So I take some videos and I sent the best take that I had. I was like, yeah, they're gonna love this is great. And I didn't hear anything back. And then I think I heard, we'll do some work when you get here. It'll be fine. And I arrive and we meet Rex. I meet Rex Peterson for the first time, and he's this, the most cowboy-looking guy you ever see in your life. Purple boots, white mustache, with a white cowboy hat. And he's like, hey there. I say, it's like, we got a lot of work to do. In that video, you look like a monkey fucking a football. And I was like, that's good.
No, that's not good.
No. But we worked, and I was like this for 3 days, and then I did all my own writing in the movie in the end, so it paid off.
You did a great job.
Yeah.
And we did something. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we did something rather unfair, but it was just the schedule, the way it worked out. The very first scene that Solly did was our first day of shooting in Mexico, and it's the scene number 2 where he comes out of the saloon after shooting a bunch of people, and then has to reload a very complicated gun from the period, take the whole chamber in his pocket and reload, all walking, all very confident, shoot another guy, and then get on this big black horse and keep him calm and ride away humming a tune, just completely relaxed. And that was his first scene that he had to do. So,
first time I tried to get on the horse, my trousers all the way as well, and I was stood there waiting for them to stitch.
The whole crew watching while they're sewing this hole in his pants.
Right here.
I says, okay, Solly, we'll try it again. But he never looked, he didn't sweat, he looked calm inside. Maybe he wasn't, but he did a great job. And I said, the good thing about having done this scene today is now you don't have to be afraid of anything.
Yeah. The rest was easy.
I think that quite a few people in the audience haven't seen the movie yet. So maybe you want to take us a little bit into, without spoiling too much, into like your characters and into the story. Like, how would you describe the most important facets of your 2 characters? Solly, you start.
No pressure.
Jesus.
As always.
So, yeah, because you haven't seen it, I didn't realize. I play the bad guy. He's really awful. You're gonna hate him. I'm glad I've met you before. And that's it. You can talk about him.
That's it, yeah. Well, as I say, Solly is and was at that time mature beyond his years of experience and his age as a person. He couldn't be more professional, more hardworking, and has a great screen presence, you'll see when you see the movie. And we needed that from the nemesis of Vivienne, the character that Vicky Krieps plays in our movie. She's the main character. And probably psychologically the strongest character in the story, she is. And it's her story, and she's heroic in unexpected ways, but any kind of heroic character needs opposition, needs a good nemesis. And that's what Solly did. He gave it to her. He matched her on every level. It was great. My character is not as strong psychologically as Vicky's character, but she, for some reason, likes him, and they end up together. I think you'll see in the movie, after their first night together, on the light of day, the way he's behaving and prancing about, she sort of looks at him and realizes it was a mistake, and the guy's actually an idiot, and how can she get rid of him? And that's how their relationship starts. And he's kind of stubborn. She says, so where are you going now? You know? And he says, who says I'm going anywhere? That's the beginning of their relationship. It's really an unusual sort of love story between two people who care about each other, who show an interest in what the other person thinks and feels, which is why their relationship works in spite of my character's clumsiness. And yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you. That's basically, I play a man named Holger Olsen, who's a Danish immigrant, and she plays Vivienne Lecoudi, who is a French-Canadian woman.
Did you have her early on in mind for that role?
Did I have her?
Vicky Krieps, yeah, to cast her.
When I wrote it, I didn't think of anybody. And then when I finished the script and worked on it a little bit and thought, okay, now it's good enough to show to someone, and I have to find the actress for Vivienne first to try to raise the money. I thought of her because of what I'd seen in the movies, especially The Phantom Thread, but also other work, because she has such a strong presence, an ability to transmit so much emotion and thought, even in silence. And also her physicality, the way she looks, she could easily be someone from another time, I thought, you know. You could see this in Corsage, for example, a very different kind of character, also a strong woman, but different. You know, Vivienne is an ordinary woman. And I thought, well, if we could get her to play this role, then we really could make an interesting movie. But you never know if they're going to be available, or maybe they played something similar already and they don't want to do it again. So fortunately, she answered right away that she loved the story, she wanted to play this character, and then we knew that we could make a good original Western with a strong woman at the center.
We talk about that much more, but I would like to ask a general question first. Where would you place it in between the two, an anti-Western or a Western? Where would you place The Dead Don't Hurt? How do you feel about it or talk about it in that sense?
For me, it's a classic Western. It's filmed the way the best classic Westerns are, I think. Marcel Ziskind, cinematographer who also shot my first movie, Falling, from Denmark. He did a great job. I wanted to, like in the old classic Westerns, I wanted the photography to be simple. Not that it's simple to achieve this, but to seem simple and elegant, to really see the characters in the landscapes, to see the landscapes, to get the most out of it visually, so that as an audience, if it works, then you would have the feeling like I used to have when I was a kid, seeing movies like that, where you feel like you're there. You can imagine being there. Maybe you even want to be there, you know, and in these landscapes. And, you know, the idea is not to have the audience think too much about how the camera is seeing these things. You just accept it, you believe it. And, you know, the way people sound, the way everything looks, like a classic Western. Within this story, of course, there are things that are quite different than most Westerns. That you have an ordinary woman as the main character is very unusual. There have been other Westerns with strong women as the central character, but they're usually extraordinary women, you know. Barbara Stanwyck in certain movies like Sam Fuller's 40 Guns, or in The Furies, you know, they're big ranch owners, or they're women who are extraordinarily powerful in some way, or conventionally very beautiful, Claudia Cardinale and Sergio Leone Westerns, or even Marlene Dietrich in Westerns. But they're unusual. They're not ordinary women. In this case, we're telling a story about an ordinary woman who is limited physically by what she can do. It's not an exploitation movie where the woman's going to get a gun and then go shoot all the bad guys. It's not that kind of story. Strong-willed, independent, stubborn woman, you know, which there were probably many, maybe most women were like that way back then. But it's just that the novelists and journalists weren't interested in telling their stories. And filmmakers, even female directors, have not been that interested in the stories of ordinary women for the most part. So I just was curious about that. I thought, well, let's tell her story. And what you never see, at least I hadn't seen, is if a man goes off to war in a Western, you're going to go with him. You're not going to stay with her, and we stay with her. Because I was curious what happens to women when their fathers, or, you know, and little girls, when their fathers go away, or the brothers, or in the case of Vivian, her partner, male partner, goes off to war. What happens to them? What do they do? What are the consequences for them? So that's in large part what the movie is about. The movie is about her. You see her childhood. You see what happens to her when she's on her own, and how she deals with difficult situations and difficult characters.
Maybe a little bit of a more general question. What is it that sort of like fascinates you about the Western genre and Westerns in general?
Well, I wasn't starting to, when I started to write the story, it was just a story about Vivian, who's a female character inspired by the personality of my mother, really, also an ordinary woman of her time, mother of 3 boys, housewife from the 1960s, 70s, and but also very strong psychologically, someone who's curious about other cultures, movies, art, who had her own ideas, who wasn't going to be forced to think like someone else. She had her own way of thinking about things. And I thought it would be interesting to place a story of a woman like that in the 19th century, in the West, because it would be more difficult, you know, because that society was wild, lawless, dominated by a few powerful men who weren't against using violence to achieve what they wanted, you know. And they would just make it more of a contrast and more of a challenge for her. And once I realized I was writing a Western, I got excited because I grew up with them, you know, like most kids my generation, girls and boys. That's what you saw on TV. Sometimes, you know, there were several series that were Westerns. You could still go to the movie house and see a Western once in a while, a new one. And they were constantly on TV. I know in Germany here also, they have them on TV a lot, and people like them. And I know that there's a history of German Westerns as well. I mean, there's a lot, you know, all the Karl May stories, Winnetou, and all these movies, some of them very strange, but interesting. Shot in Yugoslavia, I think, most of them. And but there have been movies made by Spanish, Italian, Danish filmmakers, and usually I'm very particular about that the things have to be accurate, and a lot of times in those movies I say that they don't have those trees in North America, you know, things like that. But sometimes the story is interesting enough that you don't worry about that too much. So yeah, I liked them growing up, and I learned to ride horses when I was a little kid too, when I was 3, 4. About the same time I started going to movies, so I liked the idea. I got excited about it. I watched the movies that I had seen. I sent, I think, quite a few, maybe too many, to you.
I think you sent about 50, 60 Westerns, ranging from the 1950s all the way up to the, you know, early 2000s. And of course I watched all of them.
But I did I often said, this is a terrible movie, it's really bad. But look at the way in the scene number 23, the way the guy walks up to the horse. Look at his hat, how he wears his, you know, things like this, right?
Yeah, I did watch a few, and they helped me, because, you know, Westerns for me, you know, generationally, Westerns weren't something I grew up with, seeing in movies or on TV or anything like that. And
it wasn't something you thought about. You didn't. Did you play cowboys and Indians when you were a kid?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I did. Yeah. So I mean, I think everyone still did that, but seeing westerns and classic westerns in the cinemas wasn't something I ever did. So it definitely helped having some material to look at, and there were a few that I watched I really liked, and I took pieces from them about, like you said, the way a guy treats a horse or the way he stands and moves and things like that to help with my character.
Of the westerns I sent you, do you remember if you liked any in particular? As movies.
Yes. Bad Company was one of my favorites, which is one of Jeff Bridges' first roles, I think, in 1973, and I really enjoyed that film. Western. I liked Red River with John Wayne, playing a more sinister kind of version of himself, and that was something that I looked at for my sinister character. The Oxbow Incident was an interesting one as well.
Great movie.
It was, like a trial and stuff like that. So there were a few. I did watch them. See, I did. But there were a few, and they really helped me get into the mindset of coming to film the Western. And obviously when I arrived in Mexico and had the landscapes and the costume and the horse, that helped me as well. So yeah, although it wasn't something I was super familiar with beforehand, I feel like I know a lot more now, which is good. So,
yeah. We were lucky. I mean, we were in a beautiful place too. And on weekends we would go riding together, long rides up in the mountains, and that was a great way to get to know each other and get comfortable with that whole world, those landscapes, being on a horse, solving problems, yeah.
How do you feel about the concept of heroism these days? Because you came from, or did, a lot of very epic movies, a lot of films that deconstructed violence, like History of Violence, for example. And I think it is very important when you look at The Dead Don't Hurt. You're very specific, I think, in regards to that concept.
Well, what is heroism? Heroism is making difficult decisions that you know are the right ones for you and maybe for those around you. Maybe they're unpopular at the time, maybe it's not the easiest way to deal with something. I mean, there are moments in the movie that are heroic in an unusual way. Without ruining the story, there's a moment where a lot of bad things have happened for Vivienne, and she makes a decision that she wants to leave the place where she's decided to live with her partner, my character. And she makes a difficult decision not to go. It's done without words, and she's very good in this moment. But that decision to not be forced out, in a way, is heroic, I think, for example. So it depends, it's... I think I watch movies anyway. I go to the movie theater, always hopeful. The lights go down, and I hope I'm going to go on an adventure and I'm going to be inspired by something. And the first 10 or 15 minutes, the director can do whatever they want. It can be as weird as it wants to be, as long as there's something that's interesting, and I'll stay with you, and I'll participate in the storytelling as an audience member. But basically, I'm hoping that I will experience situations where I see people that I can identify with on some level, whether they be men or women, and I ask myself, what would I do in their situation? Would I be as stubborn or as brave as Vivienne in that situation? How would I behave as Weston when trying to face up to my father, who's a strong personality? Would I do what Olsen does? Would I go to war? Would I not? Would I regret it? Situations where you imagine yourself. Part of the reason I wanted to be part of movie storytelling initially was when I made a transition as an audience member. I was maybe 21 or so. It never occurred to me to be an actor. I know that you, when you were little, you used to perform for your family, right? Didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, he was like constantly putting on.
I was just annoying as a kid. Just attention-seeking, annoying child. Just, yeah.
But it never occurred to me to do that. You know, I was socially timid. So, but then I made a transition around when I was 21. I was starting to watch a lot more. Starting to learn more about the history of movies, and then I even got a job in an art house cinema where I would watch new movies, well, new to me, you know, movies by Pasolini or Fassbinder or Carl Dreyer or Ozu, Bresson, all these history of Ingmar Bergman, you know, all these movies. And I'm like, wow. And I started to ask myself, what's the trick, technically? How do they do it? How am I moved to where I identify with this character, and when I leave the movie theater, I'm surprised at where I am, you know? I've gone on a journey. How do they do it? How do they make me feel so much, you know? Or think so much? And I thought, well, it's the actors on the screen, so let's try to do that. And then once I started taking part, I realized it's very complex. There's a screenplay, there's a director, there are other actors, and there are actors who actually aren't really good at their job, that don't know their lines, and that are clumsy, but then the editor fixes it, and they look great, you know? So, wow, it's a very complicated thing. So I was just, I don't know, I can't even remember what the question was. What was the question?
Whatever. I just went along the ride as well. I have one simple, stupid question. Is there one film you come back to in film history? Because we got lost in film history. Some reference that you want to recharge in a cinematic way that you have a look at?
I mean, there are movies I've seen many times, but I can't really pick one, because then I'm leaving out others. I mean, the movies I've seen the most, it's a range of different weird movies. I mean, I've seen Carl Dreyer's The Passion of Joan of Arc many times. I've seen Red River, the movie he was referring to, Howard Hawks' movie, many times. But I've also seen Step Brothers and Anchorman many, many times. You know, I've seen Elf every Christmas, you know, at least twice. And so, yeah, I have an eclectic taste, I guess.
We do too. The two of you agreed to take questions from the audience as well. I think it would be a great time to see if there are any. I'm gonna run. No. I'm gonna come down. Okay, let's start in the middle, and then I'll take the first row. Yay.
Sure. I've got this minute. Oh, sorry. Hi. So I just found out you're playing an antagonist, and you both played antagonists in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I was wondering, because as an actress myself, I think it's quite difficult to step into that mentality and like in that bad role. So I wanted to ask, what were your approaches, and if you gave Solly some advices, because it must be quite difficult to step out of that mentality of that bad guy.
I didn't give him advice. We talked about a little bit his possible family background long before we started shooting, and then he just went with it. I'm a believer of, if they're doing a great job and they're doing as well or better than what you hoped, don't interfere, you know, don't say anything. But we did talk about possible family background, but you filled in all that yourself.
Yeah, we did. I mean, it's hard you'll see when you see the movie that it's hard to find any redeeming factors with Weston Jeffries, my character. You know, he's just like, the worst. But for me, you know, as an actor trying to play him, I didn't want him to just be a surface level psychopath, you know, surface level evil guy. I needed to find some humanity somewhere, some vulnerability, and there's only one scene in the movie where there's a confrontation with, his relationship with his father is obviously very complex, and there's only one scene really you see that kind of come out of itself. And it was the one scene when I was reading it that I saw he was you know, showing some weakness, showing some vulnerability, some emotion. And for me, that was my key. That was the thing that I dove into. And yeah, like you said, I was able to think about his history, the relationship with his father, what was his relationship with his mother like, what happened to her, you know, just his childhood, basically, before he became the horrible man that he is, what led him there. So that helped, and that's just one moment in this scene that I was able to get in and do that. And I think that's all you need, really, to find a vulnerability in someone, to give someone some depth and some humanity, no matter how evil they might be on the surface. So, yes. But it was still hard to be so horrible.
I think it doesn't matter what kind of character you're playing. I mean, I always, when I'm accepted to play a role, whatever is written in terms of description or the dialogue the character has, whatever it says, I always ask myself, when is he not like that? When do they think differently than that? When do they speak differently? When do they behave differently than that? Because people are complex, and we're all at times contradictory, depending on who we are relating to and which day it is. And so I think even if you're playing someone who's written, like Solly was saying, as, well, he does some bad things, and his attitude is kind of scary, maybe. When is he not that way? You know, when does a character... I mean, we all start as little kids, and I don't think 3- and 4-year-olds are psychopaths, you know, or that don't behave in that way necessarily, or aren't deliberately cruel, you know. I don't think it's something... There are things, there's mental illness, of course, but there's also conditioning and how you're raised, what your influences are. And so everybody starts as one thing and evolves into something else. And each person's journey is different, and each different journey is complex. So I always ask myself, when is it not that way? How could it be if it was otherwise? Even if it seems impossible for the character, imagination is free. So if I'm reading it, I'm going, well, he seems like this, obviously. It says he's like this, but when is he not like this? He's a human being. He must have a variety of feelings and emotions. You know.
More questions, yeah.
Yes.
Next to it. And then we're going to walk around a bit.
Hello, Viggo. First of all, I want to thank you so much for your amazing work. I'm a huge fan, and you're one of the reasons I'm getting into acting. So I'm so honored to speak with you right now, and just want to say thank you for your amazing and wonderful work. It inspires me so much. And what was my question? Yeah, perfect. In Crimes of the Future, you do a thing with your throat. There were a couple of scenes where you adjust your throat a little bit, like, and I want to know how you did. Oh, you did it right now. Okay, wow. Okay, like that. Just be relaxed, relax the throat. Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Hi.
Live acting lessons.
Hi there. As a screenwriter, I've got a question for the hyphenate Viggo Mortensen. How did all the roles coexist? You are the writer, you are one of the main actors, you're the director, you're the producer minding the money in an independent film production. How did you coexist on one chair while writing? When did who push somebody out of the saddle, and when did the writer come back during filming or post-production, and how did you balance that?
You're a screenwriter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it tell you?
I think of the whole process as a form of writing. You know, the music is, as I was describing earlier, it's part of the script, really. And what I like most about telling movie stories is it's a collaborative act of writing. It begins, you're by yourself, But then you show that first draft or the second or third draft to somebody, and they influence what you do with that draft. And then you show it to actors, and then crew members, and then you see the locations, and you have to make adjustments. So it's a continual process of writing. And as you're shooting, you're making adjustments, and suddenly the actor is not comfortable with that line, so you have to be flexible. And like, well, either I have to explain how that line could work or come up with a better one, you know? But these things don't happen all at once, or you would never sleep. It'd be impossible. So as I said, the music was done before, the script was done, and we adjusted as we went along. And I had not planned to act in the movie. It just was something that happened because the actor that was supposed to play the part decided at one point, late in the preparation stages, after being with us for many months, the actor that we had raised the money with, along with Vicky, to do something else. I don't know what it was. And so we tried to replace him with a younger than me actor. I'm an actor that age, as written originally, and who was well known enough for the financiers to say okay. But we couldn't find anybody who was available. We tried with a few people, and then it got to be quite late. And in the end, I said, well, I could play it, and my co-producer said, yeah, that would work. You know, we could. We could accept that financially. And I said, well, I have to ask Vicky. Fortunately, she said, yeah, it's okay with me. I said, well, he'll have to be older, and we'll have to change some things in the script where you talk about that, his age. And she said, yeah, I'm not worried about it, it'll be fine. So that's how that worked. And yeah, fortunately, I wasn't both acting and directing every day. You know, there were many days. Like Solly's scenes, except for one, really. They're not with me. I'm not acting on the days he's working, so I was able to just fully focus on the crew and on the actors in a different way. The days I was acting and had to think about script and shooting, I would be more tired at the end of the day, but the process itself wasn't terrible. I mean, it was actually, I think I was more effective as an actor in a strange way, because I just didn't have time to be paranoid or second guess myself. I wasn't like in the middle of a scene, at least I do as an actor sometimes, even if the audience can't tell. I've just said a line, I'm thinking, oh, that was shit. Maybe I hope I get another take, even as you continue to act, or, ooh, that sounded weird, you know. I didn't have time to do that. I was doing what you should do as an actor all the time. As director, in the scene, I'm, say, looking at Vicky, her face, listening to how she speaks, her body language, and also everything around her that I know is in the frame, the light, the objects. I'm fully present, and I'm fully reacting to everything I'm seeing and hearing, and feeling about it, without thinking, I'm not doing a good job. I didn't have time for that. So I was more effective. So 1 or 2 takes and I was finished, you know, I was much more effective. So yeah, I mean, it is a lot of things to do, but they're done in stages and they're done with the help of other people, yeah.
More questions? Let's take the 2 here, maybe? Yeah.
Hello. Can you hear me? Oh, yeah. First, I want to thank you as well, because you're like one of my biggest childhood heroes. So thank you so much for being here. I'm a producer myself and a horse owner, and I've always been intrigued by the idea of shooting a Western. So I was wondering, from the production viewpoint, do you have any learnings, any advice you could share, something you might do different next time?
As a Western, you mean? Or just a movie?
Yeah, in a Western movie.
No, I think we did a good job as a team. We were very efficient. I mean, the movie that you will see, hopefully you will see, looks a lot more expensive than it was to make. And it looks like we...
They didn't pay me.
We will. No, and it looks like we took a lot longer to shoot it, which as a producer, you want to get the most out of the money you have. And we found some great locations, projects where nobody had filmed before, which was also a special gift, you know, for us and hopefully for audiences. But as far as shooting Westerns, I would just say, it's not something I learned. I'd learned it on other movies with horses, but never yell action when horses are around. And don't get suddenly very quiet either, because then the horse knows what's going on. Why is everybody so quiet? Just act normal, and then have the director. The first AD, sometimes they're shouting and yelling. We had a first AD, Mexican woman, who was incredible. And Mexico is a country, I'm generalizing, but it's not everybody, not all men are like this, but it's a pretty macho kind of society still in many ways. And there was a lot of men on this shoot, but there were also a lot of women in charge of departments. And the first AD, who's the sergeant, keeps everything going, as you know, she never yelled, but she had authority. You know, she would just turn and look at you, and you'd be like, you know. So she ran the show very efficiently, and she knew that never to yell around the horses. She was sensitive to that. So I would say make sure you do that, and just say, have the director or the first AD say something like, okay, let's do one now, go ahead. Not action, no yelling. Somebody, and we made it clear on the first day, if you need something, you know, give me that screwdriver or something, don't yell it, go over and get it. Or send someone to go get it. You have to be careful around horses. They are, when everything's going well with horses, you feel like you're on top of the world and everything's great. And wow, it's wonderful, we can shoot a Western. But things can quickly go really wrong with a horse, you know. You remember the day when you were coming up to visit her in the garden and your horse took off twice?
With me?
No, when you came to visit, no, when...
Oh yeah, I wasn't on the horse, thank God.
No. He had got off and the horse is just left there and he's supposed to stay.
Yeah.
But people were making a little too much noise. And the camera, and I said, okay, we have the shot, let's move on. And it was one of those days where I didn't fully trust my instinct. I let myself be talked into, let's do another angle and put the camera closer. And I said, I don't think we should do it because the horse is probably going to run away. No, look, he's calm, he's not going to run away. The horse ran away. We were lucky to catch him twice. And because we had really good horse people and they caught the horse. He could have gone all the way back to base camp and we would have lost an hour. And the horse would have been exhausted and a mess, you know. So be quiet, be very efficient, know exactly what you want to do. Don't shoot 50 angles with a horse. No, do a couple and be very quiet and calm. That's it.
First, I had to introduce myself. My outfit is that
and also your cowgirl friend that we were just talking to.
No. I would tell you that we have in Munich the oldest cowboy club in Europe. It's established in 1913. Wow. Now we had our 111th anniversary. So I am a short member in this club, but I had much knowing the living history and what they people get in the century, in the 18th, 19th century, from 1840 to 1870, so on. And we are a small club, and we had about around 100 members. And we had also in some times make their own clothes, and we had a saloon, and we had a small museum. And
you have a saloon?
So, yeah.
Can we come?
And we also dance. We also dance square and so on. And that is that's why I'm so in that outfit.
Perfect.
To get to see you.
You look great.
And to meet and greet. And so the question for you is, I'm also a horse rider, and interested in did you this movie find these locations and in the wonderful nature by your own, or do you have your scouts, and how did you feel that's the right location for your movie?
Thanks for the question. The locations, well, I'm very particular about the trees, the landscapes. They should look like where it's supposed to take place, if possible. And it is possible. You just have to look. And the movie takes place in the southwest of the United States, a place where 13 years before the movie starts was Mexico. In the United States in 1848, they took it from Mexico, all that southwest, Nevada, Utah, California, New Mexico, Texas, Arizona, etc. And we found landscapes in Mexico with the right kind of trees, the right kind of rocks, mountains, soil, flowers, everything. So it looked right. And then we found other places for the journey. There's a journey that Olsen, my character, and a boy go on, which crosses a lot of territory from desert to arid kind of mountain pine forest to high mountain forest, and then eventually to rainforest and then coastal area. And we found all the places that would be right. And yes, I did several trips to Mexico. The first time we found places, incredible places, but they were too far apart. You know, it's a big country, Mexico. So we were in different states, and I said, this is all great, but we have a limited budget, and we have a limited amount of days we can shoot, and we can't possibly go to all these places. So we have to find it in one state, and we found it in a state called Durango, where there have been westerns shot, as you probably know, in the past, especially in the 1960s and 70s. And it's a state that has a lot of variety. It has desert, has high mountains, waterfalls, lots of things that you will see in the movie. And several of the places that we went to with a Mexican location scout, and I would go with the cinematographer and we would look at these places. When we would find a place where we could easily shoot several sequences and live in the same area, and not have to find new hotels all the time and spend lots of money and driving a lot, I would ask them, this is beautiful. I don't remember seeing this in a movie, but what movies have been shot here? Just Mexican movies, or have they shot some, US movies here also? And sometimes they would say, no movies, ever. I said, great. And that was a pleasure for us, just that we were in this beautiful place, but also thinking ahead to what you will see on screen. It's not going to be what you've seen so many times before. I mean, if you've watched hundreds and hundreds of westerns, as I have, after a while you start to recognize, you go, oh yeah, this is Lone Pine, California, this is Tucson, Arizona, this is near Santa Fe, New Mexico, this is Texas, or this is Mexico, or this is the south of Spain, or in some cases, this is Yugoslavia, and you start to, or the south of France even, you start to recognize these places, and then it's up to the cinematographer to make it look more interesting or different somehow. We didn't have to do that. We just had to do a good job in these beautiful, unfilmed places. So that's how that happened. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for your insights. I'd like to ask you about the process of composing the music.
Well, I sat down at the piano with the script. I looked at scene 1. No music. I looked at scene 2. Western rides away. Yeah, okay. I played some notes. And then that was that, and then on to the next, and so I went scene by scene, and because the story is non-linear in its structure, there were some transitions from different time periods where I knew that music would help us. And there's a few examples of that. There's, for example, a sequence of small scenes with Vivienne sort of a little more than halfway through the movie that are very important, and it's a piece of music that has to do with her childhood and a song she sings sometimes in the story as a girl and then as an adult, and I knew that the music would help these time jumps really work. So it was really connected to the script as I did that, and then I went and got together with the musicians, a cellist, Cameron Stone, whose cello playing you might recognize from the music from Game of Thrones, great player. And he has a beautiful instrument. It's like 300 and something year old cello, and he gets the most amazing sounds from it. Some of the sounds that sound very strange in the movie, they're all organic sounds that he got, you know, and in some cases that I got out of inside the piano. And then, and Scarlett Rivera, who plays the violin, and she's really gifted, can play classical music, but also Appalachian style violin. And she played with Bob Dylan, for example, on Desire and other records in the 70s. So I got together with them, again with the script, and I said, well, this scene is about this, and this is the music I'm thinking about, and then we just worked it up together and adapted to their instruments, and in some cases I played with them, and other times I didn't, and I just showed them the melody and then they played it. So that's how the process was. So it was very tied to the script.
Hello. Hi. Olga Weber, Oral Spell Production. I wonder, the name of the movie is very interesting. At first I understood the dead doesn't hurt, and then I saw the dead don't hurt. That means that dead people don't hurt, or what does it mean? I like it. It's very interesting, and I'm going to see your movie because you made me very curious about it. But it's very interesting. It's because of your mother, because she had a very difficult life, and you want to give us idea about this hard life in the Western time. I don't know, but I like it. It's very interesting. And Solly, nobody asked you about anything, so I want to ask you something. So, how is it to work with Viggo together? I don't know.
I'll let you think of some kind of elegant way to get out of that question. I'll give you time while I answer the first one. Yeah, the dead doesn't hurt makes it singular. The dead don't hurt, do not, can be plural or singular. But the reason I chose the title, which comes out of one of the scenes in the movie, in the scene, in the context of the scene, the dead don't hurt means specifically that the dead don't feel pain, right? But on its own, out of context, this title, apart from sounding to me like a good Western title, The Dead Don't Hurt, it has a double meaning in English. It means the dead don't feel any pain, and it also means the dead can't hurt you. They can't do any harm to you. So it has this double meaning. In other languages, you know, I don't know about German, but maybe they're just going to go with the English title, I think, here, because so many people speak and understand English, I guess. But for France, for example, where it came out first, France and Spain, and then Scandinavia, they said, what are we going to do? Because we can't quite get this double meaning in French or Spanish. And so I thought, I will try to I will look in the script, because maybe the way I found The Dead Don't Hurt, maybe I'll find another title in the script. And then I realized that there's 3 times in the story, with different significance each time, different meaning. The idea of the end of the world is mentioned, one time as a joke, another time as a promise, and the third time as a question about the end of the world. And I thought, until the end of the world would be good. And they liked that in France, and then they liked that when I told them in Spain, well, France is going to be called that. They said, oh, we like it too. The Danish liked it too. Czech Republic, they liked it also. So a lot of places it will be until the end of the world instead of The Dead Don't Hurt. But I like The Dead Don't Hurt. I'm glad that you guys are going to keep that. So. And what you said about my mom is like, I was like, wow, that's cool, that's interesting. That's what I like about Q&As, you know, even when, you haven't seen the movie yet, right? Yeah. No, I'm just saying you haven't seen it. But even people who have just seen the movie, and I've done many Q&As, and Solly's been to some of them, they sometimes come up with questions or observations, comments, that I never thought of, that are like, maybe that's even better than what I was thinking. So I love the conversations with the audience because ideally it's what you hope. I mean, I hope anyway. I make the movie I want to see. We make the movie we hope works together. And then once you see the movie, it's your movie because you bring your own life experience to it. And I think this transference from the filmmaker to the audience, I think the filmmaker has to accept that without any conditions. You know, if a person thinks it's about what they think it's about, then that's what it's about because it's their movie. You know, so I like what you said. It's interesting. It's not what I was thinking, but maybe I was inside somewhere.
Working with Viggo was okay.
Famous last words, I would say.
No, I'll say more.
That's what I like about him. To the point.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to... No. Yeah, well, I think I was in Berlin when, at the Berlinale Film Festival there, when I heard from my agent that Viggo wanted to call me about his script. And he called me up, he said, "Hey man," I'm not going to do the voice. He was like, "Have you heard of an actor called Viggo Mortensen?" And I said, I think that rings a bell, yeah. And he said, "Well, he wants to give you a call, and you know, there's a script, there's a role in it that he thinks you would be good for." So he said, "Can I give him your number?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And the following Monday, I was at home, pacing up and down my room, waiting for the phone to ring, and it rings, and I dive for it, and then I go, I should wait and let it ring. And then I kind of answer, go, "Yeah, hello? Yeah, you all right?" And he said, "Is this Viggo?" "Yeah." And you said, "Oh, well, I'm going to send you the script. There's a role in it. I think it'd be good for you. If you hate the script, then just let me know." And I was like, "Okay." Probably won't. "Yeah, it's shit, man. I'm not going to..." Yeah. But I was really shocked at the scale of the role and how much you trusted me to give it a go, even just for audition purposes or to read or whatever. And I emailed back saying I loved it. And Viggo, for me, when I was a kid, I already mentioned how annoying I was, but my granddad showed me the Lord of the Rings films, which I think you're in, I think. And
yeah, just a little part at the beginning.
Small bit, yeah. You flash up a couple of times on screen. And it was some of the films that made me want to be an actor. So, you know, to have a call from Viggo and to have worked with him is, like I said, it's okay. No, it's good, it's great. It's amazing, and here we are.
Well, as much as we would love to take more questions from the audience, time just flew by. But I would say, join us tomorrow for... Is it still working? Yeah. Join us tomorrow for the screening if you have tickets. Unfortunately, I think it's sold out, but there are more screenings. Ask your questions tomorrow. Viggo and Solly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.